Hey, what's up motivators? Taren here. Running is the crackerjack box of injuries. I was actually going through a coaching course once that is a very, very reputable coaching course. And on one slide, they said 60% of your athletes will encounter an injury at some point every single year. And I was like, whoa, we gotta back it up. If more than half the time, we as coaches and people who are giving advice for how to train in endurance sports, we are failing our athletes, the entire system is broken. What we are going to give you today is the main causes, literally the main causes that studies have found. These are things that lead to a higher likelihood of injury so that you know what to avoid, and we're going to give a system that we use to make sure that our athletes get to their race lines feeling very healthy, chomping at the bit, and they're fitter and faster and healthier every single year. So let's get into it.
My name is Taren. In my 20s, I was overweight, unfulfilled, and couldn't even run to the end of the block. Over the following years, I found endurance sports, lost 65 pounds, won age groups, raced world championships, broke records, and trained and learned from some of the best athletes and coaches in the world. You too can use endurance sports to change your life and accomplish your fitness goals. You just need a system that's meant for us amateurs who want to be our best while feeling our strongest and healthiest. My company Motive offers that system, and I want to share some of the tips from it today.
Let's get right into it and start off with bringing you the heat. You can check out this study if you want. It's called Injuries for Runners, a systematic review on risk factors and sex differences. Links are in the description below to everything I mentioned. This study looked at 400 studies analyzing what were the risk factors associated with a higher likelihood of running injury. The 7 common highest risk factors associated with injury were: number 1, previous use of orthotics. Number 2, running exclusively on concrete. Number 3, wearing the same running shoes for longer than 4 months. Number 4, running 50 kilometers or more per week. Number 5, the flip side to that, only running once per week. Number 6, primarily participation in non-axial sports. Non-axial sports are ones where there is just one joint that is moving one way. This is non-axial. This all around is axial. You want to move more dynamically. Running in particular is non-axial. Traditional strength training that is moving just maybe one joint in one range of motion, or even compound movements that are still just locked in into one range of motion, traditionally non-axial. And the final point is running too much too soon. To touch on that, I wanted to go to a physiotherapist who I've worked with, Brody Sharp, who runs the Run Smarter podcast and the Run Smarter Physiotherapy Clinic. I asked him just flat out, hey, when you see running injuries come in, what is typically the number 1 most likely cause? And here's what he said.
It all stems down to this relationship between load versus capacity. The load side of things is your training loads and making sure that the loads that you subject your body to isn't too abrupt. So we don't want to do too much too soon, that be mileage or distance. We don't want to do things too abruptly, such as terrain, going from running the flats to all of a sudden doing a lot of hills, changing footwear if that's too drastic. We don't want to really do that because that overloads the body very quickly. And then you have the capacity side of things. So the capacity is your internal ability to tolerate the loads that you put upon it. So certain things can be like stress management, your sleep, your nutrition, your hydration. All these components can actually influence how much you tolerate the load that you put upon it. So summing all up that question, most running related injuries are due to abrupt changes in load, or a decreased capacity to tolerate those loads.
Thank you to Brody for that. There's a link to his site in the description below. Brody is a phenomenal resource for avoiding and coming back from all endurance training injuries. Our sponsor for today is Athletic Greens, and this is AG1. AG1 is a product that I use literally every single day, and I started doing so because I wanted a replacement for a traditional multivitamin. Traditional multivitamins, if you've used them, you know that your pee turns lime green, and essentially you are flushing money down the drain. You're making very expensive pee because your body isn't able to absorb traditional multivitamins in its typical form. AG1 has 75 vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all from whole food ingredients so that it's very easy for your body to absorb. It's in a greens powder, and I can tell you from experience, I know that my body is absorbing it. So if you want to try this out, Athletic Greens has made it easy for you. You can get a free year's supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packages with your first purchase of AG1. You can do so by going to athleticgreens.com/Taren. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Taren to take ownership of your total health with this all-in-one nutritional insurance. I love it. I'm seriously a big fan. Brody did share this one study about how much is too much. That's actually the name of the study. And as you read through it, basically what they say is how much is too much for everyone is actually different for everyone, which is why I think the endurance industry just gives generalities saying, well, make sure you don't do too much. But I think that we as people who are putting out content in the endurance industry and people who are training athletes in the endurance industry, we have to expect more of ourselves. So what I've created here is 6 guidelines, and these are exact guidelines that I think if you follow them 90% to the letter, your likelihood of injury will be greatly reduced. The first thing in this system is getting the how much is too much, the how much you should train right based on your goals. We've created this calculator here that I've shared before where you can put in your running race that you're training for, your rough background of whether you've got no background in fitness at all, you have a modest background being you are a very fit athlete in another sport, or you already have an elite background in endurance sports, and your goal, it generates the approximate months of good training that you need to put in to reach that goal and the average weekly training hours that you will need to reach that goal. This is going to give you a guideline of roughly how much is appropriate. The second piece in the system is, let's say you aren't yet at that average weekly training hours that are recommended. This is where you need to build up in very small increments. Your cardiovascular system is actually going to come around a lot quicker than your musculature, your musculoskeletal system. So your heart and lungs will be ready to go out and do longer and longer runs very quickly, but your musculoskeletal system might break down if you're building up too much. So a guideline is only build up anything by about 8% each week. So if you are starting running 30 minutes a week, well, only build up in 8% increments each week. If you are maxing out at 10K and that's a long run for you, only build up by 8% beyond that for your long run. Only build up the amount of, say, trail running or hill running that you do in small 8% increments. All of the variables of your training should be built up very, very gradually. The third part of the system is to get 7.5 hours or more of sleep per night. Anything below that, and I can't guarantee that you are going to absorb your training, i.e. make any progress. I can't guarantee that you are going to avoid any injuries. 7.5 hours is kind of the cost of doing business. That 7.5 to 9 hours tends to be the sweet spot for most people. And I know that this might be hard, but if you can't get it in, that just means you're going to have to reduce your goals of what you're actually trying to accomplish and reduce the amount of training that your body has to adjust to. The fourth thing is to have trail running incorporated into your plan as much as possible. Again, don't go and just go from all concrete to all trail running right overnight. Use that 8% rule to gradually ease your way into it. But trail running is very good because it's a little bit softer on the joints and it's less of that non-axial movement. Because it is a little bit side to side, it's a lot more dynamic, there's a lot more up and down, your body is going to adapt to a wider range of motion so it doesn't have imbalances. The second to last thing is to include strength training into your plan, but very dynamic strength training. This is why we like kettlebells. A great example of why we like kettlebells is just explain the difference between a dumbbell and a kettlebell. A dumbbell, when you hold it in your hand, the center of mass is right in your hand, so you can control it. With a kettlebell, the mass is out to the side, so it's pulling you over to the side, causing your entire core to have to stabilize with every single movement. So you can do the same movements that you do traditionally in the gym, but just with a kettlebell, and all of a sudden it's going to be a lot more dynamic and it's going to be a lot more conducive to reducing the likelihood of injury. There's a link in the description below to our kettlebell training course. So if you do want that type of strength training and you're not using our app, it's specifically designed for endurance sports with 25 hours of guided kettlebell strength routines that are designed for your in-season, your off-season, your rest weeks. It's designed specifically for the needs of endurance athletes, and we find that we get tremendous results. Finally, the last thing is to get ahead of injuries. And this is what a lot of people say, but what does getting ahead of injuries mean? Well, two things. First, monitor if you have low motivation. If you wake up in the morning and you think to yourself, ooh, gotta grind through this workout. And that tends to be a badge of honor for most endurance athletes, but that low motivation is actually the first indication that you need a little bit better balance, maybe a little bit more sleep, maybe a little bit less stress in your life. Maybe the balance is by bringing your training load down a little bit. And guess what? You might actually perform better by having a better balance. And then a second, more objective measure is, do you have muscle soreness the day after a workout or 2 days after? If you're getting muscle soreness, that means that your body isn't able to absorb the work that you're giving it. So if you're experiencing muscle soreness definitely 2 days after and regularly 1 day after, that's an indication that you either aren't getting enough sleep, you've got too much stress in your life, or your training loads are too high. That's our system. Hopefully that helps. Thank you for watching, Motivators. If you're looking for a training plan that incorporates these methods that is as good as a one-on-one coach but as inexpensive as doing it yourself, check out our Motive training app that covers triathlons, running races, duathlons, swim runs, and cycling events. There's a link in the description below where you can check out your customized training plan for free. Also, if you rather listen to these tips, we also publish these videos in podcast format on the Taren's Motive Method podcast, so you can check that out. And if you don't want to do either of those things, but you found this video helpful, hit us up with a virtual high five by smashing the like button below. Later, Motivators.